Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Improv Network podcast, a series of conversations aimed at making stronger connections throughout the improv community. I'm James Quesada.
And I'm Bob Wick.
And we are your education team for the Improv Network. You can go to theimprovnetwork.org to check out all sorts of great resources, interviews, and blogs, and an Improv FAQ page with these videos, as well as lecture videos on improv topics. And it is the last Sunday of the month, which means that we have a recurring guest, featured guest.
Yeah, it's a Shannon Sunday.
Hey, it's a Shannon Sunday. It's a Shannon Stott Sunday.
Yeah,
yep.
It's a Shannon Stott Sunday. So moving forward, we're gonna have the pleasure of Shannon joining us on the last Sunday of every month, which is gonna be fantastic. Every episode we've had with you, Shannon, I've just really enjoyed the conversation and just the energy and everything. So and
today is no different. Yep. We're talking about Rick and Morty. Can we say this? I don't know. Really?
Yeah. It's a conversation at the bar. So talk as you yeah. Caveat of the talking at the bar. You're like, yeah.
Listen,
and yes,
Go ahead. Rick and Morty. So here's the deal. I know. So before we got started, I was like, guys, we need to talk about silence on stage and how to utilize it and how amazing silence is and how not to be afraid of it. And then I finished the last season of Rick and Morty, and I was like, dang, Rick and Morty. Rick and Morty is the shit. Like, we need to talk about Rick and Morty because that dude, Rick, has emotional issues. He has emotional issues and he does not express them well. And then I was like, somewhere in there, in how Rick and Morty do not express emotional issues and silence, somewhere in the middle of that conversation is gold.
No, there's a hybrid here.
Is relevant.
You just got to dig into. Absolutely. I would say like everybody on that show has emotional issues. Just to,
right. That's like, let's start there. Let's just start. Let's unpack this a little bit. So
Please.
What I'm seeing, and we'll get to the silence. I promise.
But that's what people are waiting for. Yeah.
It always comes like at the last 3 minutes while James is like, and that's the end of our, and we're like, and this is definitely the beat. This is the mic drop. And then and then it's over. But we get there. It's fun to get there. So okay, Rick and Morty.
Yeah.
So you're Rick and Morty fans, right? Both of you have watched Rick and Morty. We're on this. Okay, so all right, we're not talking about anything that's too nuts. So this is what I am feeling. So the last episode, this is a spoiler. If you're watching Rick and Morty, we're spoiling stuff a little bit. Whoa.
Oh, you switched to audio only. What happened?
I didn't mean to. I didn't touch anything. Can you even hear me?
Silent.
We can hear you.
Visually silent.
I can't. I don't. Here, you know what?
Maybe your green screen is working too well. I don't know.
Your green screen.
I didn't touch it. I didn't touch it. Where's that from? That's from a movie. I didn't touch it. It's not my fault. Oh, it's Star Wars. Okay, so Rick and Morty.
Let's talk about Star Wars. And it's a great franchise. And just finished watching it, so there are spoilers here.
Yeah. For anybody who's going to be upset that we're spoiling a cartoon that hasn't had a new episode in 3 years, sorry.
It hasn't been that long though, right? It's been 1 or 2 years, but they came out with the 4th season kind of recently, right? Didn't they?
Oh.
Or am I wrong? Is it just the 3rd?
I think
the 3rd.
You know what? I don't know. I think I just finished the 4th season.
Yeah.
Oh.
But I don't know how long ago it was released. Because I'm behind. All right. Look, all right. you're good. While James looks up how many seasons Rick and Morty has had and when the last episode aired, this is the thing. So the last episode happens, and really what we see, without too many spoilers, is Rick is left by himself, alone and sad. Okay. And what we see throughout the whole thing, two things that I have noticed is Rick is going through this thing where he is only able to express emotion through farts. Right. So it's like a lot of fart jokes. Let's see, I'm gonna pull it in. So through a lot of fart jokes, a lot of cussing, and a lot of being super mean. Okay. A lot of being super mean. And those are okay. Fart jokes, cussing, being mean. Those are the first three things. The last thing is if you like close your eyes, which is hard to do, and you listen to Rick and Morty, the cadence at which they speak is fast. There's barely any breath. In fact, instead of breathing and being silent, I'm getting there, James. Instead of breathing and being silent,
yeah.
They'll fill the gaps with stutters. So they'll just like and that's why both of them, they just fill gaps. This reminds me of greener improvisers, right? When we start scenes and when we are afraid of expressing emotions, I say scenes, but I'm talking when we start in our beginning doing improv, right? We are doing a lot of crude jokes, right? We're cussing a lot of farting, and burping and sex and things like that. What was the other one I said? There was one more. Farting, swearing,
insults, stuttering,
being mean. Being mean, right? We're like telling people like to fuck off and like get out of here and you're not my real boss and whatever it is. So I'm so here for this. That's great.
Hey, Moni.
You're not my real boss.
Thank you, Moni.
And then the very last one is we do not sit in any silence because it brings up we get scared. The improvisers get really like scared of silence, like something bad might happen. So we like and we want to fill that silence with anything and everything. And so we go back to farting, being mean, and being vulgar. Boom. We're done.
Thank you, everybody, for watching the Improv Network podcast.
This analysis of
Shannon
Sunday
has been the shortest Sunday of the month. All right.
That's it. I dropped it. Now we can talk about all this.
I would have give you 10 extra points if you and like a greener improviser like Pickle Green would like that. That's I was waiting for it.
Should have went there.
You set yourself up.
I did. I sure did. I missed it.
But I absolutely agree with everything you just said. I think part of the problem is people, when they sign up for improv class, think they're signing up for a comedy class. And what is comedy to somebody who's never trained in comedy is a funny line. They think about the punchline. Not everything that, punchlines need a setup. You need an establishment. You need to build tension for the laugh. You need to connect with the audience so they were all on the same page before you could drop that blow line and get the ha-ha. That's a byproduct of what we're doing. That shouldn't be the goal. And I think we fail with introducing people in that because we want to draw them in at first. We start them off with like, let's do a line game, which is very much set up and knock down. So they get into that pattern, especially when we go through all these short form games and, every time you get a laugh, we encourage it because it's fun. We want the classes to be fun as well. But we don't talk about, story arcs. We do talk about character, but I don't think we really break down what all the things we need to do to have a strong long form scene. Because that'd be a lot too. I'm like, welcome to Improv 101. Sit down, kids. We're going to do a lot of talking. What you know about comedy is wrong, and I'm going to teach you why. That would be rough. So I get why the confusion happens. I don't blame them for it. It's part of our job to take them on the journey, I guess.
Yeah, improv is a separate skill set from storytelling and from comedy and from acting And yeah, it's tough to kind of muddle them all together, and most programs don't have it built in when to tend to those, when to separate and tend to those different skill sets. Like there's improv skill set. Some schools are very much like it's improv and improv comedy. Always, we're always going for comedy. Some schools are like, we're going to improvise and act first, then we'll get to comedy. And yeah, I think you're right, Bob. Not a lot that and we talked about this with beats of a story when we covered over a vast saga of episodes.
3, 7, 11, all day.
Yeah, like storytelling and devices are not always baked into improv curriculum.
Yeah.
And I think Shannon, in terms of like the Rick and Morty comedy and the pacing and the like, it is one of those things that also it's like, okay, that's a comedy show, and it feels it has that like improv sort of feel to it, because you know the actors I think are doing a lot of ad libs and whatnot, and it's just very loosely crudely written on purpose. But it's so fast, and it does things that like you can't get away with in improv, unless everyone is in agreement that like we're just going to talk as fast as we can and shit on each other and go for like that kind of crude humor. It's just more difficult to accomplish that, and that is also separating like the skill set of the improv medium versus like a written medium. And people watch comedy shows. Julia and I have been watching a lot of Gilmore Girls together, and that's a very tightly fast-paced written show.
The Gilmore Girls.
We're going to talk about Gilmore Girls.
What makes the day different?
And Rick and Morty.
Rick and Morty.
Yeah.
There we go.
But yeah, there's shows that have they're just written at a clip that like you want to emulate. It becomes like very cool that like that pacing of conversation is like where the wit comes from. It feels so sharp, and it feels so you know, but you really can't. It's unwise to aim at that pace of dialogue in an improvised show, but yet we still try. Is our inclination is to be like, let me try to talk as fast as Rick and Morty or Gilmore Girls or whatever show you're trying to like capture the humor of.
Yeah. And so what's interesting about that, see, you got me all like, ooh, it's so juicy, because there is and we're not talking about what the writer's intent is, right? We could talk about that all day. What do we think the writer's intent? So we're talking about what we're pulling from this. And you're talking about the idea, the want to mimic what Rick and Morty do, how they sound, what they sound like on stage. And the interesting part about that is it feels like the writers are showing us something when it comes to improv, right? It feels like the writers are showing us like this fast pace, this willing to be mean, this willing to be crude, this willing to not address what is actually being laid out. So there's maybe one of you can remember it, but Rick says something like, I don't know what he says. He's like, bigger woggle wiggles, whatever it is. And we find out in one of the episodes that gibberish phrase means I'm in deep internal pain, right?
Yeah.
Do you remember that? And it's this concept that at the pace that we're going, at the speed, at the vulgarity, at all the things that we're doing that seem to be funny are actually intrinsic of pain and not stopping to share that pain. And then so we take that Rick and Morty like overhaul or blanket, and we under the blanket is this improv thing that we're talking about. And when we teach, I wonder, when we teach our students not to slow down, not to sit in the moment that they are creating, it can be funny, right? Sure, it can generate humor and comedy, but you are losing emotional connection to yourself and to your partners, and it's coming out like you're looking like Rick is in pain, right? And so I wonder if I don't remember if I had told you all this, but I remember I was teaching a class and I asked this woman something like, she was in the scene, and I said to her, would I see that your character is making this choice? What would you do in this moment? And she was like, I didn't take improv to be myself. I was like, whoa.
Wow.
There. Okay, that's a whole other can of worms. I think that's a fair perspective to have. I do struggle with this, where
Okay.
it's like acting and imagination and stuff, and it's like this is a question of vulnerability, right? So it's a question of like okay, people want to. I've had students like that too that are like, I want to play a robot, and I want to play fantasy fairy tale stuff. I was like that when I first started. I one of the things I wanted to do most was do like sci-fi and fantasy type characters. It's understandable, and then it's hard to be like, okay, but first you need to learn how to, like, again, it's a skill set of like improv and acting, and when to like tend to those things, because it's like, if you can't really get in touch with like the realness of yourself, you can't really apply that in the best way to those fanciful characters. But I am sympathetic to people who are like, I didn't get into improv to just like play close to self. And,
Yeah.
But it's a very useful way to like teach people to like set everything on a shelf and be like, don't worry about all the bells and whistles and all these crazy characters. Let's improvise as you, so you can improvise well and act well without having to worry about that. And when you get to doing all the crazy stuff, that you'll be better at it later. But it's hard to be patient too with us as a student, to wait and work on the like or the real stuff.
It's true. But I'm just gonna keep on harping on this Rick and Morty. I am sitting on Rick. All right. Like, the thing is, it is true. And it is true. It is hard to be patient, especially when we're talking about doing short form, right? A short form that is never going to be seen again, or even like small, like even if you're going to do like a narrative, something that's just never going to be seen again. The thing that we get out of Rick and Morty is that it's a whole seasons with tons of episodes and whatnot. So if you take one of those episodes and you only watch that, you do get all this like funny banter and interesting wit, and like, it's crude and it's fun, whatever. But you miss that the fact that it is a series. We get to see Rick actually develop over whatever like the years that it took to create the show, but we get to see him develop in these seasons, and we get the benefit of understanding why he is the way he is over literally hours and hours of footage, I guess, of like episodes. But we don't get that in a short form show. A short form, we don't have the time and energy. So for me, I'm like, you do have to do the work. It's worth it. It's going to be worth it in the long run, because even if you put on like the robot character, right, and you're the robot, if you can connect to yourself in those 3 minutes through the robot, you pull in your audience so much faster. Yeah.
Because, and I honestly, I believe no matter how wild of character you're playing, if it's a good character, it is connected to yourself, so it becomes relatable. Or there's got to be some kind of grounding mechanism that is universal related. It doesn't have to be so much an experience or a point of view that's yours, but maybe through your experience, someone like this, or an exaggeration of that characteristic that you can apply to a fictional character. Because we don't have the visual aspect that Rick and Morty has. They can have wild monsters as everything, because as soon as that wild monster pops on screen, our brains are telling us, ooh, that's weird. That's a wild monster. All we have is our own body. So me going up there, I'm a wild, without saying I'm a wild monster, just flaring my arms isn't enough. You have to embody this character. Cool. As soon as we establish that, why is this character more interesting, and how are we going to do something with this if it's all about the discovery of what this character is? because we can spend 30 minutes like making a list game of what all this unique characteristics and physicalities of this character, but what's its story?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
See, that's what's its story. It's so
What's
good.
its story?
Yeah. Why does it
that's
tick?
the human or the personal element. Improv doesn't have to be therapy, so being vulnerable doesn't mean you have to drag up all the shit that you went through. But I hope that someone taking improv class does have some great experiences that they would like to share or perspective. It's that whole live an interesting life so you can share it on stage.
Yeah. I wonder, James, like when you said when I started, I didn't want, it wasn't about connecting to myself. It was about doing characters, having fun, being fast. How has that changed for you, and has it?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I've said this on here a few times that my sort of overall goal when I started was like, I want to do things that a cartoon can do on stage. And so I was just very much like physicality and voices. And I started a troupe for like fairy tale improv, and I got to indulge in that. And I think that I'm really grateful for that. But yes, eventually I was like, I'm still obsessed with improv, and I've like kind of gotten that out of my system. And then what happened is that I moved on to like, okay, what's the next big challenge? And the big challenge was like playing more of a straight character, and doing better acting, because the shows, as fun as they were, would consistently kind of go off the rails, right? And I would want more out of the shows, and more consistency. And so I guess I kind of found the limits of that type of character for myself. And yeah, started just exercising a different muscle. And then that has definitely, and then it's kind of come full circle, because honestly, what's happened is that like, then I'm like, I got, the more I focused on that, like grounded stuff, eventually I hit a wall where I was not able to have as much fun with opportunities to be kind of kooky.
Right.
And then I was like, this is not me anymore, you know?
Right.
And it's like, I wasn't bringing enough of myself into it. And then I was trying to be too real.
Right.
And kind of like, I just wasn't being as playful. So then I had to balance the scales again.
Oh yeah.
And now I'm at a place where like, I think I really love playing like really nuanced, that friction between just like, the undercurrent of emotion between characters, and how well they're controlling it. I really like that in terms of like grounded stuff. But my favorite things to do are to go like meta and absurd and surreal and fourth dimensional. And but I think I'm so much better at that because I spent time in the more grounded stuff, and I have the tools of grounding things when I need to, and putting things through a filter, that surrealism and absurdity through a filter of better acting than I was able to do or exercising, putting into practice when I was starting out.
Yeah. I love that you're talking this full circle thing, because the thing that we miss, if we don't dissect it, right, the thing that we miss is within Rick and Morty is the absurdity meeting the grounded, right? So that what you're talking about, that feeling of starting out like, I'm an octopus. I'm an octopus, and I eat bees. Great, this is fine. I don't know.
No, workshop that character. It's getting there.
This is one of my favorite things. There's so many. Whenever somebody gives like, you know, some kind of stupid thing, and it's octopus and bees, and it's like yes, I love that.
Yep.
That is honestly part of the reason why it's tough for me to be like, Is that something we need to avoid? Octopus bees?
No. See that's the thing. It's great when you start off and you're like, I'm an octopus and I eat bees, right? This commitment is fine, I guess, but it has no depth. It's hard to sustain. It's very hard to sustain because, to Bob's point, it's not coming from anywhere. You're just now when I pull, I don't know, I'm an octopus and I eat bees.
Yeah.
Like, and so I just
sound like Adam
wander around
Sandler.
stage.
I'm crazy
Acting
octopus man. I got bees for arms.
And it's great. The idea is great, but it's definitely hard to sustain. And like, for instance, with Bird Person, right? With Bird Person in Rick and Morty, right? So we like it's absurd when he shows up. He's absurd. Like, I'm a person. I have wings and like a laser eye, right? But then he says things so blandly. Like, one of the things that he says when we first meet him, everyone's like, hey Birdman, and he's like, my name's not Birdman, right? And then it just glosses over. People are like, sure, whatever, Birdman, blah blah blah. But that one liner is depth enough for that character for us to get on a surface level or not. But of course, I'm watching it like as an improviser. I'm like, did you hear that? He like has depth. What's his story? Right? Like, what's the story there? And Bob said it, like, what's the story of octopus bee guy? Right. And it doesn't take too much. But what you're saying, James, is like, when you first started, it didn't have, like, octopus bee guy doesn't have any depth. We're just playing with our bodies. We're doing that thing, right? We're just playing to see it. Can I sustain? Can I sustain this? And usually the answer is no, we can't. It's very difficult to sustain.
But
why? Then,
because either is you yourself create a character that you cannot sustain, or by committee, it's not being sustained. So you can be that wild, off-the-wall character. You're Godzilla going after Tokyo, but then you need like the shop owner who's like, oh, this shop has been my family for generations.
Yes.
And it just got stepped on. This is my reality. I live in a world where there is an octopus bee monster, and it just ruined my life. That is something people can understand, because then it becomes a metaphor of like other things, like big business taking over the little guy. What happens when Walmart moves into a small town? It sets up emotions and real life situations, but in a fun, bigger than life way.
Yeah, I love that, because in that scenario, what will usually happen is one character comes on, it's Octopus Man, I eat bees, and another character comes on, it's like, well, I'm made of strawberries and I love like mole people, whatever. And so like those two characters, it's like they can't sustain because neither of them have gone to any depth, right? And so we don't have anything that surrounds them or anything. So yeah, that idea, I loved that, like, my name's not Birdman, right? Like, I love that, because look at that stupid character that they just invented, some dude Birdman. This is crazy. But he has a story, right? It's interesting. Rick and Morty.
Right.
Yeah, part of this conversation of sustainability or whether or not these wacky characters are interesting for long kind of reminds me of this thought I've had about like whether or not just the difference between improv now versus improv in the 80s and 90s, let's say.
Ooh, snap.
when like modern long form was a more of a novelty, and I've thought to myself that the thing is, improv now is not really enough to just be by itself be the same novelty that it used to be. And so the way that I'm kind of comparing these ideas is that like when you're starting out, or just in a pure mode of play, it can feel like wow, I'm just like that's really what's entertaining about like Octopus Bee's fairy tale sci-fi characters is just that like I'm going for it and I can do whatever I want. But at a certain point it's like, well, for both yourself, it eventually will not be enough because the newness of it will wear off and it won't be as exciting to just like do wacky things because you can. And I think in general, the experience of improv for an audience is that way too. That like improv can be captivating just because you're going to see an unscripted show and it's just mesmerizing. That like it's magic. But I think that the art of improv has become slowly but surely worked its way into the mainstream awareness, and the idea of it is has lost its luster of being a new art form to the point where like you can't just have but like it's harder to win an audience just purely on the convention of we're doing this thing called improv. Now it's like, well, we have to have we're going to do genre, or we're going to do form, or we're going to do a particular style because there's actually 3 improv theaters in the city, like you know. And that's kind of like a maybe like a micro macro side by side of this question of sustainability, is that like the novelty of what you're doing will eventually wear off, and you need something that's more purposeful.
Yeah, I everything everyone says today, I'm just going to pull it right back into the R&M.
No.
Okay, so it's just because I think that about this show, right? The show itself as a cartoon. So cartoons the same. It's like the novelty of just having cartoons at this point seems like it's wearing off. Like there has to be depth, and in this particular one, it's absolutely speaking to this thing. And I don't want to put it in masculine and feminine, but let's see if I can. There is a certain type of people that cover up their emotions, right? Like there are people who just cover up their emotions, and the only way that they can get at those emotions at all is to drink, to fart, to be crude, to blah 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 da da da. And if that is what you are going through, this cartoon is speaking to that. And like what you're saying, James, is like it needs to do that in order to sustain, right? Because it's no longer sustainable just to have like, I mean, I guess maybe, but like as for adults, like it's not sustainable just to watch My Little Ponies for like, or gummy bears, or, you know, whatever was the thing was. It's not sustainable anymore.
No.
Do it. So, like, so we have to have something that's connecting us to the forum or the form, which is animation. The form being animation. But what is that? What is it speaking to the person? And then for improv, right? It's the same. You're talking about the audience, right? Like the audience is like, great, I get it. You're making it up. Now what? At this point, what are we, 2021? Like, yeah, there are other improv theaters. Why did I come here? I already sort of understand it. It's just really, and how are you speaking to the audience? What are you showing them that's touching, that's new, that involves them? It's really, it's interesting.
Well, I think one of the best examples, and probably the most popular episode, is Pickle Rick, right? And what I love, and what I love about this, we already know who Rick is, but he starts off with a simple want. I don't want to go to the family therapy. Right. To the point where I do my first weird thing. And today's different. And I think people focus too much on the pickle part. A little bit. But like the main focus is I want to protect myself. I don't want to be vulnerable right now. I'd rather be a pickle than have to express my emotions. And then, okay, so we have that. We're in. We know the character. We know his want. We're gonna start diving in. So the first, what makes the day different is the want not to go to the thing. Now it's build off of that. I don't want to be a pickle. What happens after that? I get thrown into the sewer because I'm still trying to avoid, even though I'm completely weak. I'd rather be a pickle in a sewer than go to family therapy. And then it just progresses. Like now I feel weak. I have to become strong. So he starts attacking the cockroaches and builds like a super suit. And then, it progresses on and on until it gets so out of whack. We have to end the episode. It's crazy. Now, if he just would have started as a big pickle with a robot suit, probably would have still been an interesting episode, but not as epic as it became because he started with just a really strong want and a cool character.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And the Susan Sarandon therapist summation at the end is just so great. And which also just reminds me that like this absurdity, the show and its absurdity is like, the writers are just, again, we can't really speculate at like what's the writer's intention and stuff until we're blue in the face. The writers are thinking.
There's the writers room.
Can we do next Sunday, next Shannon Sunday, all in that voice?
Let's
talk about Gilmore Girls. What are they thinking?
Yeah. But the way that that therapist character summarizes the situation at the end of that episode is similar to the point that you were saying, Bob. It's just like these writers are educated, like they are smart, and they're doing this chaos that they are operating on a very like intense philosophy of chaos. Like right. and there's that. It has we touched on this a little bit last week with our episode with Molly about destructive humor, and I was mentioning South Park and people wanting to emulate that kind of satire, and not giving enough credit to where the writers probably are coming from. Is that like these are probably like very well educated writers that have a very strong philosophy, and you can't skip that and still get the same effect out of being so chaotic or darkly satirical.
Right. Yeah. That's huge, because we were talking about this at the very beginning of this episode, where people want to emulate what they're seeing. They want to talk fast, or they want to cuss, or they want to be crude, or they want to fart, whatever. But they're missing the fact that all of these characters have strong wants and needs, right? And in order to get to those strong wants and needs, we have to know them. We have to understand what they are in order for the rest of it, the farting, the like racism in South Park, all of that, for that stuff to be funny. Like we have to understand that there's backstory, there's reasoning for these things. It's highly, sure, it's satirical, right? But it's highly based in the way people are living their lives and connecting with themselves and sharing that with others. So it's really, it's important to pay the dues, right? And the dues in improv are the connection with self, even though people don't want to do it.
That's a great point, is that like arriving at that kind of depth of philosophy or whatever it is that earns
it's
the
a good
ability
word.
That really for improv can come a lot from that vulnerability and getting in touch with yourself.
I've just been thinking during this conversation about The Simpsons and how many times they predicted the future, and that's because they, even though they're wild big characters, they emulate life, right? They like, there's real relationships, there's real wants. Like it might be a heightened, ridiculous cartoon version of it, but if you imitate life well enough, there's going to be some crossovers, like a Venn diagram almost. So that's been wild. Like every time like someone's like, oh, this was in the news, but did you see The Simpsons did this like 15 years ago? Like, yeah, we're getting there. We're getting wild. We're gonna only have 4 fingers in the future, and it's gonna be, and we're all gonna turn that
and
really
all be yellow. We'll just be
yellow, yeah.
And with 4 fingers, it's fine. It's fine. Okay. So it's the circle time. We're coming back. So I think that one of the ways that people can practice. Are you gone? Okay, great. There's like a whole truck. I think that one of the ways that people can practice being vulnerable without having to do the therapy, right? One of you said it's not therapy. We're just trying to open up a little bit. I think one of the ways that you can do that is through silence, is through complete shushy shush. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that's totally true. Shush, shush. But yeah, really, exercising your ability to be silent and still is one of the scarier. It's almost like meditative in the sense of like you kind of absorb the moment better.
Right. Right.
And it's for the audience too, as well, because you gave your scene partner the best gift. You added weight to the last thing they just said because it affected you. And if it affects that character, it should also affect the audience because this is a pinnacle moment and we should all take a pause and reflect on what just happened.
Hell yeah.
I was quiet. We were all just quiet after that.
Like, not me. I go, hell yeah.
Mic drop.
Mic that drop. Drop that mic. Yeah. Yes. I 100% agree. And I think you're right, James. It's so funny because when we talk about doing the work, like the internal work, people really want to jump and being vulnerable. People do want to jump to like, well, I don't want to put my stuff on stage. And it's like, okay, that is a lot of work. What you're talking about, like your point of view or your experience in life, that is a lot of work. How about this? Just shushy shush. And the shushy shush can be even more scary. And it's so interesting to me.
I did read your improv book, but I don't think I got to the shushy shush chapter. Can you what is a shushy shush if you don't spit coffee on your laptop?
Don't spit coffee over the shushy shush. First off, Shannon SH. Shushy shush. Okay, we're just talking about exactly what you're saying. Is adding weight, being quiet, saying a thing, whatever your line is, and then both you and your partner zipping it, just waiting a minute or two before you speak again, and letting what you said, letting the weight of that silence like sink in. And it's so interesting because even if we take the crazy octopus bee character, right? Mm-hmm. If there's a person on stage being what they're being, whatever it is, and somebody comes on and they're like, I'm an octopus and I eat bees. And then after that, we're just like quiet. Like, cool, man. We've got a lot of time to work with what the response to that is, right? Like, we can work with it in our bodies. And it doesn't matter what we say after that. You know, it can be, hi, John. Yeah. But it doesn't matter what we say after that. It's going to be right. It's also going to feel like this is the everyday, right? It's going to feel like that because we're not having to spin our wheels like, I'm also so, but I think it's so interesting that it can be just as scary. It can be just as scary.
Yeah. Usually the advice I give when I'm coaching people to take that moment is take that moment, wait for the first giggle from the house, then double down. Because then you know you've got them. There was enough tension that someone had to laugh because they don't feel comfortable. That's what all it is. Like, I got to release some tension. It's the perfect person who giggles at a funeral. Like, I don't know what to do with myself. Like, I'm feeling something. I don't know. Right? Right? We all heard it. No? Okay. And make them sit in it that much longer.
Yeah. It's such a good, it's just a good use of time. When in this last, and they've done it a couple of times, but in this last episode, we see after all of this, after all of the stuff that Rick has gone through, just after all the stuff he's gone through and after all the stuff he's done. Oh, even there was another one. Anyway, but after all the stuff he's gone through and all those things that he has done, and all the talking that has happened throughout the episode, all the noise and color, and they're shooting, it's like beautifully done. We get to this space at the end where he says like, oh shit, I'm a bad father. And then there's like a minute of just silence. Like there's some music, but no one says anything. And it's super uncomfortable. Like and it's great. It's great because we understand that there's weight here. We understand that Rick is thinking about what he's done. You know, we understand a lot in that silence. And I think that whenever I've seen either in movies or in this show, people saying something, especially saying something about themselves, and then there is silence.
Right.
You're just drawn in, like you feel connected to the character, and that it's just hard. I don't want to say it's hard to pull off. You feel bad for them, yeah.
And there's something, maybe not that thing, but there's something relatable about. We've all had those moments where we like, oh, I'm not the hero of my own story. Ouch. Yes. You know, that's great. I was just thinking, like, how uncomfortable is good comedy for the people performing? You know, like how if we take something as basic as like Jackass, like, wow, that's physically uncomfortable. I don't want to do that. And then you take something like a little more highbrow, like a Monty Python or something more physical, like or situational. And like, I'm glad I'm not in their shoes. That's why I can laugh. Like, well, I know how they're feeling, but it's not me getting hurt. So there's an emotional Jackass to it.
Yeah.
Well, I'll stick with that. Yeah.
Emotional
jackass. Be your own emotional jackass.
I like it. Yeah. James.
Oh, I was going to just squeeze this in there because with the time we have left, I'm remembering a blog about the sensation of Rick and Morty. Somebody had written a article just kind of pointing out the how kind of what you were saying, Shannon, is that people identify with like okay, here's this like unapologetically crude, awful character who's just like, this is me, baby, and relating in a way to that, probably not consciously in these terms, but relating to that struggle of like, I'm full of flaws, and I wish I could just be like, so fucking what, you know? And ultimately the point of the article was that like people get excited about seeing that character and feel like it's a license to do the same. And maybe the article is comparing characters like sociopathic, like nihilistic characters like Rick and Walter White and whoever else that are like these genius. That's what it was. Is like unapologetic asshole geniuses becoming more popular, and how that's having a toxic side effect on namely male culture. But like and the end point of it was that like that's fine for the sensibilities of a show and the story that it tells, but in real life you absolutely own your flaws all you want, but intend to do better, like still have the intention to try to change for the better and grow for the better. Otherwise you are just a shitty person.
Right. Well, I think that's what makes Dexter so interesting. Like, he knows he's a shitty person. You know, I'm a mass murderer. I kill people, but maybe if I kill bad people, I'm not so bad. And and that's how he justifies, you know, and being a sociopath, not being able to connect to people, that's his like Achilles heel. Like we feel bad for the guy who cannot connect to people and sometimes overlook what he's doing. Like you really like this character. It's he kind of, oh my God, he fell in love. That good for him. Good for him to have an emotion.
Good for that murderer.
He did, you know, this is episode 7, so he's killed some people as far as I know. But good for, you know what? Way to go.
Yeah.
It's that the whole thing, this idea of relating to the sociopath, relating to the genius, relating to being unapologetically yourself, right? Mm-hmm. Relating to that is fine. It is fine. And I think this is one of the things that binds us together in this episode is that you cannot overlook the outcome, the pain that is going on in this character and the story that is going on in this character, right? Mm-hmm. So as far as Rick goes, you can choose to ignore the fact that he drinks for a reason. You can choose to ignore the fact that he's so like disillusioned that he can't tell one of his daughters that they're a clone. Like he can't do that for himself. You can choose to ignore those things, or you can like really open your eyes and see that the man is trying. That's the thing. He is trying. There are like certain little lines where he's talking to Morty, and he's like, "Man, Morty, like you were really great back there, man. Like thanks for having my back." And they have these little conversations. He is trying. But if you choose to ignore the fact that Dexter is trying, right? It's not that he's like trying to do the right thing. If you ignore that, then your choices, whether it's on stage or in life, are going to be super flawed, right?
Yeah. And then what's interesting from both a character point of view, like self-realization, or maybe from the audience point of view, are they discovering something that's human or like natural, or is it like an amplification of like one of the 7 deadly sins? Like, are you actually protecting your sister because you love her? Or do you have too much pride and wouldn't let someone take something away from you? You know, like it's interesting. Yeah. So I think we can relate to these characters because we all have those. As humans, we're flawed, and we all have those moments where we do something. But this is for entertainment or comedic or drama. We exaggerate those flaws within us, and just what if a character was just all of our flaws?
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's why. Oh, sorry.
Well, it comes back to the that sustainability thing too, because the show Rick and Morty as a show is very conscious and meta. Will reference in its script the fact that it's fighting against the need to have character arcs and emotional depth.
Right.
Rick has said a couple of times that like, I don't want to sell out and have a stupid obligatory emotional moment. But then the truth is that like, the first season of Rick and Morty can be what it is, but like 3-4 seasons later, it's like there's not just a necessity in a storytelling sense, or maybe that is exactly what I'm saying here, but like it's natural for that to happen. Yes. It would be unnatural for to not be able to find a moment of that, because it's the most human thing. So the more time you spend with a character, the more likely the probability just goes up that you're going to get all the different sides of it. And in context of a show like Rick and Morty, those real raw or vulnerable moments, while very far and few between compared to other shows, have more weight to them against the backdrop of something that's trying to fight against it so much. Yeah,
you did it right. And then to pull all of that into improv, right? If you can do exactly what you're talking about, which is connect, if you have the time, give yourself the time to connect to self, then naturally your experience will come out on stage, but you have to be able and willing to let that happen to be affected.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, and I'm not kidding when I say this, Shannon. I literally forgot we were talking about improv until you said that.
This is why I'm here, y'all. That's why it's Shannon's Sunday stuff. Shannon Stott
your
Sunday.
Usual improv podcast, that's for sure.
Which is why these conversations are so great, and it's so great to have you, Shannon. Because I literally got so absorbed in the conversation of like the philosophy behind Rick and Morty and the nature of like, human vulnerability that I was like, that's right, we are doing the Improv Network podcast.
Right? Remember? Got to pull it. That's why I'm here. That's why I'm here, y'all.
Yeah. Read this thing. Yeah, or what is it? There it is.
There it is. There. It's there for me.
Where's my object work? There it is.
Yeah, this has been really great. I'm glad that we talked about all this through the lens of Rick and Morty. I would like nothing more than to just unpack Rick and Morty and apply it to improv and comedy.
Great. Guys, I think we discovered our first try workshop.
It's Rick and Morty improv.
Rick and Morty. Are you the Rick or Morty?
Oh, that's a good title.
Everybody has both. Yeah. It's the duality.
It's true.
All right. Shannon, what else is going on? Anything you want to plug before we
always check out improv, or rather shannonstott.com. Just go there and see if you want to take a class with me. There are lots of classes for improvisers and non-improvisers. Go there, see me, take classes. It's great.
Yes, awesome. We dropped a link there in the comments to your website. We'll also include it in the show description.
Right.
You're either watching this on the Improv Network Facebook page or the Improv FAQ YouTube channel. If you're listening to it, you're on anywhere podcasts are found. And you can always go to the improvnetwork.org to check out all the great resources that the Improv Network has to offer, including a tab for Improv FAQ, which includes all these videos, conversations, and lectures on improv topics. Thanks so much for joining. Shannon, it's great to see you. We'll see you every Sunday, last Sunday, rather, of the month. We'll have you back. And until then, be well, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.